The main point in this story is very simple. People are no longer just reacting to one rumor. They are reacting to a growing pile of claims, questions, old clips, travel details, and public comments that now seem connected in a way many viewers cannot ignore. That is why this story has become so big. It is not only about a possible private relationship, it is about whether the public version of events matches the facts people are now putting under a microscope. And once that starts happening, every detail matters more than ever. What changed here is that the talk moved from quiet gossip to a much wider public debate. At first, this looked like another internet rumor, the kind of story that burns hot for a day and then fades away. But then more claims started coming out. People began pointing to leaked texts, old statements, travel timelines, public appearances, and the actions of key people after Charlie's death. That is when the mood shifted. This stopped looking like simple drama to many viewers, and started looking like a story where people wanted answers, receipts, and a clear timeline. The name at the center of the latest wave is Erika Kirk, and the claim pushing this story into a new stage is that she may have had a relationship with Andrew Kolvet while Charlie was still alive. That is the allegation people are talking about. Let me be very clear here because this matters. Allegations are not proof. Rumors are not proof. Online posts are not proof. But when claims like this spread at the same time as timeline questions and public behavior that viewers already found strange, the story grows very fast. That is exactly what is happening now. A big reason this story keeps getting attention is because many people feel the official version of events has not answered everything. When that happens, the internet fills the silence with theories. Some theories are weak, some are wild, some are based on clips taken out of context. But others point to details that people believe deserve a real answer. And that is where things get serious, because when a story involves personal betrayal, power, money, public image, and questions about who knew what and when, people stop seeing it as gossip and start seeing it as a puzzle. The alleged leaked texts added fuel to that fire. Once people hear the words leaked texts, they assume there must be something real behind the curtain. That does not always mean the claims are true, but it does mean the public gets more interested right away. People want to know who sent what, when it was sent, whether it was verified, and whether it actually shows what some accounts are saying it shows. That is why this part of the story matters so much. Texts, if real and properly confirmed, can move a story from guesswork to evidence. But if they are not verified, then they can just as easily become another layer of confusion. Another reason this story keeps getting bigger is the role of public figures talking about it. Once well-known voices start saying the timeline does not make sense, viewers stop treating the story like random gossip. They start asking whether there is a deeper problem. They start going back through old footage. They start looking at dates, flights, interviews, and body language. And they start asking the same question again and again. Does the public story line up with the physical facts? That is where the flight timeline became such a major point. A lot of people are now focusing not only on what was said, but on where people were, when they were there, and whether those movements fit the public story. Because if a person says they traveled after hearing shocking news, but records or travel details appear to suggest movement happened earlier, then people will naturally ask why. They will ask whether the story was told wrong, whether details were left out, or whether someone knew more than they admitted publicly. That is the part of this story that has made many viewers stop and pay close attention. And this is important. A timeline issue does not automatically prove a larger accusation. That line should never be crossed without real evidence. But a timeline problem can create doubt. And once doubt gets into the public mind, everything else gets reread through that doubt. A hug on camera looks different. A smile looks different. A choice about who gets a new role looks different. A public speech looks different. Viewers start asking whether they were watching grief, strategy, image control, or something else entirely. That is how powerful unanswered questions can become. Then you have the issue of who stepped into Charlie's spaces after his death. People are looking closely at who took key public roles, who appeared on camera, who was given trust, and how fast those changes happened. That matters because when the same names keep appearing near both the private rumors and the public power shifts, people start to think it may not be random. They begin to see a pattern. Again, a pattern is not proof by itself, but it is enough to keep the story alive and keep the pressure growing. The reason so many viewers are stuck on this point is because people do not only watch what others say, they watch what others do. They watch who stands where. They watch who gets close to whom. They watch tone, comfort, timing, and emotion. They compare public grief with public behavior. They compare official words with visible actions. That may not always be fair because people handle loss in different ways, but it is still what the audience does. And once the audience believes a public image may be hiding a private truth, trust begins to break down. There is also a deeper issue here, and that is credibility. This story would not hit this hard if people believed every public statement had been clean, clear, and fully reliable from the beginning. But once a person's past statements are questioned, every new statement gets tested harder. That is what is happening now. People are asking whether earlier claims about private life were fully true, and if they believe one part of the story was not honest, they begin wondering how much else may also be incomplete. That is why credibility matters so much in a crisis like this. One weak point can shake the whole structure. The will issue has also become a major talking point. Reports and rumors about changes to a will before a death will always get attention, especially when the relationship itself is under public review. If it is true that changes were made, people will ask why. If it is not true, then that should be clearly addressed too. Because once money, inheritance, and personal conflict enter the story, public interest grows even more. Viewers start thinking about motive, timing, and whether private trouble had already reached a breaking point before anything became public. Then there is the insurance side, and this is where the story becomes even more charged. People hear about large insurance numbers, LLCs, business structures, and dates close to a death, and immediately their minds go to the darkest place. That is human nature. But this is also the part where people must be most careful. Business and insurance structures can be complex. Dates that look shocking can still have explanations. A company move that seems dramatic can have a legal or tax reason behind it. So while this area deserves calm and careful reporting if records are real, it also deserves restraint. Big claims need big proof. Still, it is easy to see why people are alarmed. When viewers hear about a large policy, a business structure around that policy, and reported changes close to a death, they feel like they are no longer just hearing about personal drama. They feel like they are looking at something bigger. Whether that feeling is justified depends on facts, not emotion. But the reason the public keeps coming back to this point is obvious. It sounds like the kind of detail that could matter a lot if confirmed. Money always changes how people read a story. A rumor about a relationship is one thing. A rumor plus money, role changes, public image, and strange timing is something else. That is why the story has become so explosive online. It now touches almost every pressure point that makes the public suspicious. Love, betrayal, status, power, grief, money, and control. When all of those sit inside the same story, people do not let it go easily. The behavior after Charlie's death has also been pulled apart frame by viewers online. People are replaying interviews and shared appearances, studying tone, facial expression, and body language. Now, body language analysis can easily go too far. People can project whatever they want onto a smile or glance. But once the affair claim enters the story, many viewers believe those clips look different than they did before. They believe certain moments feel too warm, too light, or too comfortable for the time and place. That may not prove anything, but it absolutely affects public opinion. This is where public image becomes a major issue. In a crisis, people do not only want truth, they also want the emotional tone to fit what happened. If it feels off, even slightly, trust drops fast. A person may be innocent of every rumor and still come across badly if their public tone feels wrong for the moment. That is the danger of being watched in a digital age. Every clip becomes evidence in the court of public opinion, even when it should not be. Another major part of this story is the role of insiders. Fired insiders, upset insiders, former staff, and people who say they saw things up close are now helping drive the public conversation. Insider claims can matter, because those people may know more than the audience, but they can also come with bias, anger, and their own motives. That is why insider stories should be treated carefully. They can point to leads that deserve checking, but they are not enough on their own. A serious claim still needs serious proof. Even so, insider claims often shape how the public sees a story because they give the drama a feeling of access. They make people feel like they are hearing what happened behind closed doors. Once that starts, viewers stop asking only, "Is this rumor true?" and start asking, "How much of this has been hidden for a long time?" That shift is powerful. It gives the story momentum. It makes the audience feel like they are pulling back a curtain. And that is the heart of why this scandal keeps growing. It is not one claim. It is the stacking effect. One rumor leads to old clips. Old clips lead to travel questions. Travel questions lead to talk about foreknowledge. That leads to money questions. Money questions lead to legal questions. Legal questions lead to questions about loyalty, grief, and control. Each part strengthens the next in the eyes of the public even before anything is fully proven. That is how internet scandals become full storms. But this is also the moment where people need discipline. It is easy to turn suspicion into certainty. It is easy to let anger make every theory feel true. It is easy to decide that because one detail looks bad, the worst possible story must be the real one. That is not how truth works. If there are real records, real texts, real audio files, real legal documents, and real witnesses, then those things should be checked carefully. If not, then the public should slow down. That is the only fair standard when real lives are involved. At the same time, public figures cannot expect people to simply stop asking questions when the questions are this serious. If there are gaps in the story, those gaps will be filled by speculation until clearer answers come out. That is just reality. Silence can protect legal strategy, but it can also make public trust worse. So the longer major points stay vague, the more the rumor machine grows. And right now, that machine is moving fast. What viewers are really reacting to is the idea that there may have been two stories happening at the same time. The public story was grief, loss, and rebuilding. The darker story, according to online claims, was betrayal, hidden ties, and a private world the audience never saw. That contrast is what makes this feel explosive. People can accept tragedy. They can accept mess. What they struggle to accept is the feeling that they were shown one face while another reality was hidden underneath. That is why this has become more than a relationship story. It has become a trust story. People want to know whether they were misled. They want to know whether public statements were crafted to calm them while deeper issues stayed buried. They want to know whether the people now holding power earned that place honestly or stepped into it under a cloud that has never been cleared. Those are not small questions, and they are not going away soon. The biggest issue now is what can actually be proven, not what trends online, not what sounds dramatic, not what fits a theory. What can be proven? Can the text be verified? Can the travel story be confirmed with hard records? Can the timeline be locked down? Can claims about the will or insurance be backed by real documents? Can insider stories be matched with facts? That is the line between scandal talk and serious reporting. Until that line is crossed, the public is left in an uneasy place. There is too much smoke for many people to ignore, but not enough confirmed fire for the biggest accusations to be treated as fact. That gray area is where stories like this live the longest. It keeps both sides talking. One side says the pattern is too strong to dismiss. The other side says the jump from suspicion to certainty is reckless. And until harder proof appears, the fight stays there. What nobody can deny is that the image problem is already real. Even if some claims never get proved, the damage to trust has already happened. Once enough people believe a public story does not fully add up, reputation begins to crack. And in the world of media and politics, trust is everything. A person can survive criticism. A person can survive rumor. But surviving a long collapse of trust is much harder. That is why the next stage matters so much. This story now needs clarity more than drama. It needs records, not reactions. It needs facts, not just clips. It needs a timeline that holds up under pressure. Because without that, people will keep filling the empty spaces with darker and darker theories. And every day that happens, the public gap between what is claimed and what is known gets wider. So where does this leave the story right now? It leaves it in a place where the allegations are serious, the public interest is huge, and the unanswered questions are doing almost as much damage as confirmed facts would do. It leaves Erika Kirk and Andrew Kolvet at the center of claims that many people online now see as bigger than a simple affair rumor. And it leaves the audience watching for one thing above all else: proof. Because in the end, that is what decides everything. If the claims are false, then clear evidence matters now more than ever. If some claims are true, then evidence matters just as much. Either way, no one should want this story settled by rumor alone. Not with stakes this high. Not with names this public. Not with claims this serious. The only thing that can end a storm like this is something solid enough to stand against both speculation and spin. Right now, people are not only asking whether there was betrayal, they are asking whether the full public story was built on half-truths. They are asking whether the timeline was clean. They are asking whether private relationships shaped public decisions. They are asking whether grief was real, performed, or mixed with something else. And until those questions are answered with hard proof, this scandal will keep growing, because the internet does not let go of a story when the facts still feel unfinished.